The Knight's Tale. Iamque domus patrias, Scythicae post aspera gentis prelia, laurigero, etc. Whilome as old stories tellen us, there was a duke that hight Theseus. Of Athens he was lord and governor, and in his time switch a conqueror that greater was there none under the sun. Full many a rich country had he won, what with his wisdom and his chivalry, he conquered all the reign of Femine, that whilome was yclept Scythia, and wedded the queen Hippolyta, and brought her home with him in his country, with muchel glory and great solemnity, and eke her young sister Emily. And thus with victory and with melody let I this noble duke to Athens ride, and all his host in arms him beside. And certes, if it were not too long to hear, I would have told you fully the manner, how wonnen was the reign of Femine by Theseus and by his chivalry, and of the great battle for the knowns betwixt Athens and Amazons, and how besieged was Hippolyta, the fair hardy queen of Scythia, and of the feast that was at her wedding, and of the tempest at her homecoming. But all that thing I moot, as now full barren. I have, God woot, a large field to erren, and weak been the oxen in my plough. The remnant of the tale is long enough. I will not let an eke none of this rout. Let every fellow tell his tale about, and let's see now who shall the supper winnin. And there I left. I will again beginnen. This duke, of whom I make mention, when he was come almost unto the town, in all his weal and in his most pride, he was aware as he cast his eye aside, where that there kneeled in the highway a company of ladies, two and two, each after other clad in clothes black. But such a cry and such a woe they make, that in this world nis creature living that heard such another waymenting. And of this cry they would never stenten, till they the reins of his bridle henten. What folk be ye that at mine homecoming perturben so my feast with crying? Quod Theseus, have ye so great envy of mine honour that thus complain and cry? Or who hath you misboden or offended, and telleth me if it may been amended, and why that ye be clothed thus in black? The eldest lady of them all spake, when she had swooned with a deadly cheer, that it was ruth for to see and hear, and said, Lord, to whom fortune hath given victory, and as a conqueror to liven, naught grieveth us your glory and your honour, but we beseechen mercy and succour. Have mercy on our woe and our distress, some drop of pity through thy gentleness. Upon us wretched women let thou fall. For certes, Lord, then is none of us all, that she have not been a duchess or a queen. Now be we caitiffs, as it is well seen. Thanked be fortune and her false wheel, that no estate assureth to be well. And certes, Lord, to abide your presence here in the temple of the goddess Clemence, we have been waiting all this fortnight. Now help us, Lord, since it is in thy might. I wretch, which that weep and wail thus, was whilome wife to King Capaneus, that staff at Thebes, cursed be that day. And all we that been in this array, and maken all this lamentation, we losten all our husbands at that town, while at the siege thereabout lay. And yet now the old Creon well away. That lord is now of Thebes the city, fulfilled of ire and of iniquity. He for despite and for his tyranny, to do the dead bodies villainy, of all our lords which that be slain, hath all the bodies on a heap he drawn, and will not suffer them by none assent, neither to be buried nor brent, but make of hounds eat them in despite. And with that word, withouten more respite, they fallen gruff and cried piteously, Have on us wretched women some mercy, and let our sorrow sinken in thine heart. This gentle duke down from his courser start, with heart piteous when he heard them speak. Him thought that his heart would break, when he saw them so piteous and so mat, that whilome were of so great estate. And in his arms he them all uphent, and them comforteth in full good intent, and swore his oath as he was true knight, he would do so farforthly his might, upon the tyrant Creon them to wreak. that all the people of Greece should speak how Creon was of Theseus he served, as he that had his death full well deserved. And right anon, withouten more abode, his banner he displayeth, and forth rode to Thebes' ward, and all his host beside. No nearer Athens would he go, nor ride, nor take his ease fully half a day, but onward on his way that night he lay, and sent anon Hippolyta the queen, and Emily her young sister sheen, unto the town of Athens to dwell, and forth he rides there, nis no more to tell. The red statue of Mars, with spear and targe, so shineth in his white banner large, that all the fields glitteren up and down, and by his banner borne is his pennon of gold full rich, in which there was beaten the Minotaur, which that he slew in Crete. Thus rides this duke, thus rides this conqueror, and in his host of chivalry the flower, till that he came to Thebes and alighted, fair in a field there, as he thought to fight. But shortly for to speaken of this thing, with Creon, which that was of Thebes king, he fought and slew him manly as a knight in plain battle, and put the folk to flight. And by assault he won the city after, and rent adown both wall and spar and rafter. And to the ladies he restored again the bones of their husbands that were slain, to do obsequies as was then the guise. But it were all too long for to devise the great clamour and the waymenting that the ladies made at the burning of the bodies, and the great honour that Theseus, the noble conqueror, doth to the ladies when they from him went. But shortly for to tell is mine intent, when that this worthy duke, this Theseus, have Creon slain and won Thebes thus, still in that field he took all night his rest, and did with all the country as him lest. To ransack in the heap of bodies dead, them for to strip of harness and of weed, the pillagers did busyness and cure after the battle and discomfiture. And so befell that in the heap they found, through girt with many a grievous bloody wound, 2 young knights lying by and by, both in one arms wrought full richly, of which 2 Arcita hight that one, and that other knight hight Palamon. Not fully quick nor fully dead they were, but by their coat armours and by their gear the heralds knew them best in special, as they that were of the blood royal of Thebes, and of sisters too I born. Out of the heap the pillagers have them torn, and have them carried softly unto the tent of Theseus, and he full soon them sent to Athens to dwell in prison, perpetually he would no ransom. And when this worthy duke hath thus I done, he took his host, and home he rode anon, with laurel crowned as a conqueror. And there he liveth in joy and in honour. Term of his life, what needeth words mo? And in a tower, in anguish and in woe, dwell this Palamon and eke Arcite, for evermore there may no gold them quite. This passeth year by year, and day by day, till it fell once in a morrow of May, that Emily, that fairer was to seen, than is the lily upon his stalk green, and fresher than the May with flowers new, for with the rose colour strove her hue. I know not which was the fairer of them 2, ere it were day as was her wont to do. She was arisen and already dight, for May will have no sluggardy at night. The season pricketh every gentle heart, and maketh him out of his sleep to start, and saith, Arise, and do thine observance. This maked Emily have remembrance to do honour to May, and for to rise. Y-clothed was she, fresh for to devise. Her yellow hair was braided in a tress behind her back, a yard long, I guess. And in the garden at the sun uprist, she walketh up and down, and as her list, she gathereth flowers, partly white and red, to make a subtle garland for her head. And as an angel heavenly she sung. The great tower that was so thick and strong, which of the castle was the chief dungeon, there as the knights were in prison, of which I told you, and tellen shall, was even joined to the garden wall, there as this Emily had her playing. Bright was the sun and clear that morning, and Palamon, this woeful prisoner, as was his wont by leave of his jailor, was risen and roamed in a chamber on high, in which he all the noble city saw. And eke the garden, full of branches green, there as this fresh Emily the sheen was in her walk and roamed up and down. The sorrowful prisoner, this Palamon, goat in the chamber roaming to and fro, and to himself complaining of his woe, that he was born, full oft he said, alas. And so befell by adventure or case, that through a window thick of many a bar, of iron great and square as any spar, he cast his eye upon Amalia, and therewithal he blent and cried, "Ah!" as though he stung were unto the heart. And with that cry Arcite anon upstart, and said, "Cousin mine, what aileth thee, that art so pale and deadly on to see? Why criedest thou? Who hath thee done offence? For goddess love, take all in patience. Our prison, for it may none other be, fortune have given us this adversity. Some wicked aspect or disposition of Saturn by some constellation hath given us this, although we had it sworn. So stood the heaven when that we were born. We must endure it, this is the short and plain." This Palamon answered and said again, "Cousin, forsooth, of this opinion thou hast a vain imagination. This prison caused me not for to cry, but I was hurt right now throughout mine eye, into mine heart that will my bane be. The fairness of that lady that I see yonder in the garden roaming to and fro is cause of all my crying and my woe. I know not whether she be woman or goddess, but Venus is it soothly as I guess." And therewithal on knees down he fell, and said, "Venus, if it be thy will, you in this garden thus to transfigure, before me, sorrowful wretched creature, out of this prison help that we may scape. And if so be my destiny be shaped by eternal word to die in prison, of our lineage have some compassion, that is so low thee brought by tyranny." And with that word Arcite began a spy, whereas this lady roamed to and fro, and with that sight her beauty hurt him so, that if that Palamon was wounded sore, Arcite is hurt as much as he or more. And with a sigh he said piteously, "The fresh beauty slayeth me suddenly, of her that roameth in the yonder place. And but I have her mercy and her grace, that I may see her at the least way. I am but dead there, n'is no more to say." This Palamon, when he those words heard, despiteously he looked and answered, "Whether sayest thou this in earnest or in play?" "Nay," quod Arcite, "in earnest, by my faith. God help me, so me list full evil play." This Palamon began to knit his brows too. "It were," quod he, "to thee no great honour, for to be false, nor for to be traitor. To me that am thy cousin and thy brother, I sworn full deep, and each of us to other, that never for to die in the pain, till that the death depart shall us twain. Neither of us in love to hinder other, nor in none other case, my lieve brother, but that thou shouldest truly further me in every case, and I shall further thee. This was thine oath, and mine also certain. I wot right well thou darest it not with sayin. Thus art thou of my counsel out of doubt, and now thou wouldest falsely been about, to love my lady whom I love and serve, and ever shall, till that mine heart stirve. Now certes, false Arcite, thou shalt not so. I loved her first, and told thee my woe. As to my counsel and my brother sworn, to further me as I have told before. For which thou art I bounden as a knight, to helpen me, if it lay in thy might. Or else art thou false, I dare well say." This Arcite full proudly spake again, "Thou shalt, could he be, rather false than I. But thou art false, I tell thee utterly, for par amour I loved her first, ere thou. What wilt thou say thou wistest not yet now, whether she be a woman or goddess? Thine is affection of holiness, and mine is love as to a creature. For which I told thee mine adventure, as to my cousin and my brother sworn. I pose that thou lovedest her before. Wast thou not well the old clerk saw, that who shall yive a lover any law? Love is a greater law by my pan than may be given to any earthly man. And therefore positive law and such decree is broken all day for love in each degree, A man must needs love, maugre his head. He may not flee it, though he should be dead, all be she maid, or widow, or else wife. And eke it is not likely all thy life to stonden in her grace. No more shall I. For well thou wouldst thyself and verily, that thou and I be damned to prison perpetually, us gaineth no ransom. We strive as did the hounds for the bone. They fought all day, and yet their part was none. There came a kite, while that they were wroth, and bare away the bone betwixt them both. And therefore at the Kinge's court, my brother, each man for himself, there is none other. Love if thee list, for I love, and I shall. And soothly leave, brother, this is all. Here in this prison must we endure, and every each of us take his adventure. Great was the strife, and long betwixt them two, if that I had leisure for to say. But to the effect it happened on a day, to tell it you as shortly as I may. A worthy duke, that hight Perotheus, that fellow was unto Duke Theseus, since thil't day that they were children light, was come to Athens his fellow to visit, and for to play as he was wont to do, for in this world he loved no man so. And he loved him as tenderly again, so well they loved, as old books say, that when that one was dead, soothly to tell, his fellow went and sought him down in hell. But of that story list me not to write. Duke Perotheus loved well Arcite, and had him known at Thebes year by year, and finally, at request and prayer of Perotheus, without any ransom, Duke Theseus let him out of prison, freely to go where that him list over all. In switch a guise, as I you tellen shall, this was the compact plainly to indite betwixt Theseus and him Arcite. That if it were that Arcite were found ever in his life by day or night, or stound, in any country of this Theseus, and he were caught, it was accorded thus, that with a sword he should lose his head. There was no other remedy nor rede. But takes his leave, and homeward he him sped, let him beware his neck lies pledged. How great a sorrow suffers now Arcite, the death he feels through his heart's smite. He weeps, he wails, he cries full piteously, to slay himself he waits privily. He said, alas, that day that I was born, now is my prison worse than before. Now is me shaped eternally to dwell, not in purgatory, but in hell. Alas, that ever knew I, Perotheus. For else had I dwelled with Theseus, fettered in his prison evermore. Then had I been in bliss, and not in woe. Only the sight of her whom that I serve, though that I never her grace may deserve, would have sufficed right enough for me. O dear cousin Palamon, quod he, thine is the victory of this adventure. Full blissfully in prison mayst thou endure. In prison, certes nay, but in paradise. Well hath fortune y turned thee the dice, that hast the sight of her, and I the absence. For possible is, since thou hast her presence, and art a knight, a worthy and an able, that by some case, since fortune is changeable, thou mayst to thy desire sometime attain. But I, that am exiled and barren of all grace, and in so great despair that there nist earth, water, fire, nor air, nor creature that of them maked is, that may me help or do comfort in this. Well ought I waste in one hope and distress. Farewell, my life, my joy, and my gladness. Alas, why plainen folk so in common of purveyance of God or of fortune, that giveth them full oft in many a guise, well better than they can themselves devise? Some man desireth for to have riches, that cause is of his undoing, or great sickness. And some man would out of his prison fain, that in his house is of his household slain. Infinite harms been in this matter. We witen not what thing we pray and hear. We faren as he that drunken is, as a mouse. A drunken man wot well he have a house, but he knows not which the right way is thither. And to a drunken man the way is slippery. And certes, in this world so faren we We seeken fast after felicity, but we go wrong full often, truly. Thus may we say in all, and namely I, that went and had a great opinion, that if I might escapen from prison, then had I been in joy and perfect heal. Then now I am exiled from my weal, since that I may not see you, Emily. I am undone, then is no remedy. Upon that other side, Palamon, when that he wist Arcite was gone, such sorrow he maketh that the great tower resoundeth of his crying and clamour. The very fetters on his shins great were of his bitter salty tears wet. Alas, quod he, Arcita, cousin mine, of all our strife, God wot, the fruit is thine. Thou walkest now in Thebes at thy large, and of my woe thou givest little charge. Thou mayest, since thou hast wisdom and manhead, assemble all the folk of our kindred, and make a war so sharp upon this city, that by some chance, or else by some treaty, thou mayest have her as lady and as wife, for whom I must needs lose my life. For as by way of possibility, since thou art at thy large of prison free, and art a lord, great is thine advantage, more than is mine that die here in a cage. For I must weep and wail while I may live, with all the woe that prison may me give, and eke with pain that love me giveth also, that doubleth all my torment and my woe. Therewith the fire of jealousy upstart within his breast, and seized him by the heart, so madly that he seemed to behold like boxwood or the ash, dead and cold. Then said he, O cruel goddess that govern this world with binding of your word eternal, and written in the table of adamant, your parliament and your eternal grant, what is mankind more unto you beholden than is the sheep that croucheth in the fold? For slain is man right as another beast, and dwelleth eke in prison and arrest, and have sickness and great adversity, and oftentimes guiltless, pardie. What governance is in this prescience, that guiltless tormenteth innocence, and yet increaseth this all my penance? That man is bounden to his observance, for goddess' sake to letten of his will. There as a beast may all his lust fulfill, and when a beast is dead, he hath no pain, but man after his death must weep and plain. Though in this world he have care and woe, withouten doubt it may stand him so. The answer of this I let to divines, but well I woot that in this world great pain is. Alas, I see a serpent or a thief, that many a true man hath done mischief. Go at his large, and where him list may turn, but I must be in prison through Saturn, and eke through Juno jealous, and eke Wood, that hath destroyed well nigh all the blood of Thebes with his waste walls wide, and Venus slayeth me on that other side, for jealousy and fear of him, Arcite. Now will I stint of Palamon alight, and let him in his prison still dwell. And of Arcita forth I will you tell. The summer passeth, and the nights long, increase in double wise the pains strong, both of the lover and the prisoner. I know not which hath the woofuller mister, for shortly for to say this, Palamon perpetually is damned to prison, in chains and in fetters to remain. And Arcite is exiled upon his pain, for evermore as out of that country, nor nevermore he shall his lady see. You lovers, ask I now this question, who hath the worse, Arcite or Palamon? That one may see his lady day by day, but in prison he must dwell alway, that other, where him list, may ride or go, but see his lady shall he never more. Now deemeth as you list ye that can, for I will tell forth as I began. Explicit prima pars, sequitur pars secunda. When that Arcite to Thebes comen was, full oft a day he languished and said, Alas, for see his lady shall he never more. And shortly to conclude all his woe, so much sorrow had never creature that is or shall, while that the world may dure, his sleep, his meat, his drink is him bereft. That lean he waxed, and dry as is a shaft, his iron hollow and grisly to behold, his hue fallow and pale as ashes cold. And solitary he was, and ever alone, and wailing all the night, making his moan. And if he heard song or instrument, then would he weep, he might not be stent, so feeble eke were his spirits, and so low. And change so, that no man could know his speech nor his voice, though men it heard. And in his gear for all the world he fared, not only like the lover's malady of Herios, but rather like many engendered of humour melancholy. Before in his cell fantastic, and shortly turned was all upside down, both habit and eke disposition. Of him this woeful lover done our sight. What should I all day of his woe endite, when he endured had a year or two this cruel torment and this pain and woe? At Thebes, in his country, as I said, upon a night in sleep, as he him laid, him thought how that the winged god Mercury before him stood, and bade him to be merry. His sleepy wand in hand he bare upright, a hat he weared upon his hairs bright. Arrayed was this god, as he took keep, as he was when that Argus took his sleep, and said him thus, To Athens shalt thou wend. There is shaped for thee of thy woe an end. And with that word Arcite woke and started. Now truly how sore that me smarted, quod he, to Athens right now will I fare, nor for the dread of death shall I spare, to see my lady that I love and serve. In her presence I reck not what may fall. And with that word he caught a great mirror, and saw that changed was all his colour, and saw his visage all in another kind. And right anon it ran him in his mind, that since his face was so disfigured, of malady the which he had endured, he might well, if that he bear him low, live in Athens evermore unknown, and see his lady well nigh day by day. And right anon he changed his array, and clad him as a poor labourer, and all alone, save only a squire, that knew his privacy and all his case, which was disguised poorly as he was, to Athens is he gone the nearest way. And to the court he went upon a day, and at the gate he proffered his service, to drudge and draw whatso men will devise. And shortly of this matter for to say, he fell in office with a chamberlain, the which was dwelling there with Emily. For he was wise, and could full soon espy of every servant who was serving there. Well could he hew the wood and water there, for he was young and mighty for the nonce, and therewithal was strong and big of bones, to do whatever any man devise. A year or two he was in this service, page of the chamber of Emily the Bright, and philostrate he said that he was hight, but half so well beloved a man as he was never in the court of his degree. He was so gentle of condition that through the court was spread his high renown. They said that it would be a charity if Theseus would raise him in degree, and put him into worshipful service where he might well his virtue exercise. And thus, within a while, his name had sprung, both from his deeds and from his worthy tongue, that Theseus hath taken him so near, and of his chamber made him then a squire, and gave him gold to maintain his degree. And men brought likewise from his own country, from year to year full privately his rent. But honestly and slyly was it spent, that no man wondered how he came by it. And 3 years in this wise his life he led, and bore himself so well in peace and war, there was no man that Theseus held more dear. And in this bliss let I now Arcite, and speak I will of Palamon a light. In darkness and horrible and strong prison, this 7 year hath sitten Palamon, for pined what for woe and for distress, who feeleth double sorrow and heaviness. But Palamon, that love constraineth so, that mad out of his wit he goeth for woe, and eke thereto he is a prisoner, perpetually, not only for a year. Who could rhyme in English properly? His martyrdom, forsooth, it am not I, therefore I pass as lightly as I may. It fell that in the 7th year in May, the 3rd night, as old books say, that all this story tellen more plain, were it by adventure or destiny, as when a thing is shaped it shall be, that soon after the midnight Palamon, by helping of a friend, broke his prison, and freeth the city fast as he may go. For he'd given his gaoler drink so of a clary made of a certain wine, with sleeping draught and opie of Thebes fine, that all that night, though men would him shake, the gaoler slept, he might not awake. And thus he fleeth as fast as ever he may. The night was short, and fast by the day, that needs cost he must himself hide, and till a grove fast there beside, with dreadful foot then stalketh Palamon. For shortly this was his opinion, that in that grove he would him hide all day, and in the night then would he take his way to Thebes, ward his friends for to pray on Theseus to help him to warry. And shortly either he would risk his life, or win an Emily unto his wife. This is the effect and his intent plain. Now will I turn unto Arcite again, that little wist how nigh that was his care, till that fortune had brought him in the snare. The busy lark, messenger of day, saluteth in her song the morrow grey, and fiery Phoebus riseth up so bright, that all the orient laugheth of the light, and with his streams drieth in the groves the silver drops hanging on the leaves. And Arcite, that is in the court royal, with Theseus, his squire principal, is risen, and looketh on the merry day, and for to do his observance to May, remembering on the point of his desire, he on a courser, starting as the fire, is ridden into the fields him to play, out of the court were it a mile or two, and to the grove of which that I you told, by adventure his way he gan to hold, to make him a garland of the groves, were it of woodbine or hawthorn leaves, and loud he sung against the sun sheen, May, with all thy flowers and thy green, welcome be thou fair, fresh May, I hope that I some green get may. And from his courser, with a lusty heart, into the grove full hastily he start, and in a path he roameth up and down. There, as by adventure this Palamon, was in a bush that no man might him see, for sore afeard of his death was he. Nothing knew he that it was Arcite. God wot he would have trowed it full light, but sooth is said since many years ago, the field hath eyes, the wood hath ears also. It is full fair a man to bear him even, for men meet every day at unset steven. Full little wist Arcite about his fellow, who was so near to hearken all his saw, for in the bush he sitteth now full still. When that Arcite had roamed all his fill, and sung his roundel there full lustily, into a study fell he suddenly, as do these lovers in their curious gears. Now in the tree-tops, now among the briars, now up, now down, as bucket in a well. Just as the Friday soothly for to tell, now doth it shine, now raineth it full fast. Just so can fickle Venus overcast the hearts of all her folk, just as her day is changeable, so changeth she array. Seldom is the Friday all the week alike. When that Arcite had sung, he began to sigh, and set him down withouten any more. Alas, quod he, that day that I was born, how long, Juno, through thy cruelty, wilt thou trouble Thebes the city? Alas, he brought is to confusion the blood royal of Cadmus and Amphion. Of Cadmus, which that was the first man that Thebes built, or first the town began, and of the city first was crowned king. Of his lineage am I, and his offspring, by very line as of the stock royal. And now I am so captive and so thrall, that he that is my mortal enemy, I serve him as his squire poorly. And yet doth Juno me well more shame, for I dare not beknown mine own name. But there, as I was wont to hight Arcite, now hight I Philostrate, not worth a mite. Alas, thou fell Mars, alas, Juno, thus hath your ire our kindred all fordo, save only me and wretched Palamon, that Theseus martyrs in prison. And over all this to slay me utterly, love have his fiery darts so burningly, is stuck through my true, careful heart, that shaped was my death before my shirt. Ye slay me with your eyes, Emily. Ye are the cause wherefore I die. Of all the remnant of mine other care, I set not the mountains of a tear, so that I could do aught to your pleasance. And with that word he fell down in a trance. A long time and after he upstarted. This Palamon, who thought that through his heart he felt a cold sword suddenly glide. For ire he quaked no longer would he bide, and when that he had heard Arcite's tale, as he were mad with face dead and pale, he started up out of the bushes thick and said, Arcite, false traitor, wicked, now art thou caught that lovest my lady so, for whom I have all this pain and woe, and art my blood and to my counsel sworn, as I full oft have told thee here before, and hast beguiled here Duke Theseus, and falsely changed hast thy name. Thus I will be dead, or else thou shalt die. Thou shalt not love my lady Emily, but I will love her only and no more. For I am Palamon, thy mortal foe. And though that I no weapon have in this place, but out of prison am escaped by grace, I dread not that either thou shalt die, or thou shalt not love Emily. Choose which thou wilt, for thou shalt not escape. This Arcite with full scornful heart, when he him knew and had his tale heard, as fierce as lion pulled out a sword, and said thus by God that sits above, Were it not that thou art sick and mad for love, and eke that thou no weapon hast in this place, thou shouldest never out of this grove pace, that thou shouldest not die of mine hand, for I defy the surety and the bond which that thou sayest that I have made to thee. What very fool think well that love is free? And I will love her maugre all thy might. But forasmuch thou art a worthy knight, and willest to decide her by battle, have here my troth to-morrow, I will not fail, without unwitting of any other wight, that here I will be founden as a knight, and bring an harness right enough for thee, and choose the best, and leave the worst for me. And meat and drink this night will I bring, enough for thee, and clothes for thy bedding. And if so be that thou my lady win, and slay me in this wood where I am in, thou mayst well have thy lady, as for me. This Palamon answered, I granted thee. And thus they been departed till tomorrow, when each of them had laid his faith to borrow, O Cupid, out of all charity. O reign that will no fellow have with thee. Full sooth is said that love nor lordship will not willingly have fellowship. Well find that Arcite and Palamon. Arcite is ridden anon unto the town, and on the morrow, ere it were day's light, full privily 2 harness hath he dight, both sufficient and meet to decide the battle in the field betwixt them two. And on his horse alone as he was born, he carrieth all this harness him before. And in the grove at time and place he set, this Arcite and this Palamon be met. Then changing gan the colour in their face, right as the hunter in the realm of Thrace, that standeth at the gap with a spear, when hunted is the lion or the bear, and heareth him come rushing in the groves, and breaketh both the boughs and the leaves, and thinketh, here cometh my mortal enemy. Without fail he must be dead, or I, for either I must slay him at the gap, or he must slay me if I mishap. So fared they in changing of their hue, as far as ever each of them other knew. There was no good day, nor no greeting, but straight, withouten word or rehearsing, each of them helped for to arm the other, as friendly as he were his own brother. And after that, with sharp spears strong, they thrust each at other wonder long. Thou mightest ween that this Palamon, in his fighting, were a mad lion, and as a cruel tiger was Arcite, as wild boars began they to smite. That frothen white as foam, for ire mad, up to the ankle fought they in their blood. And in this wise I let them fighting dwell, and forth I will of Theseus you tell, the destiny minister general, that executeth in the world over all the purveyance that God hath seen before. So strong it is, that though the world had sworn the contrary of a thing by yea or nay, yet sometime it shall fallen on a day that falleth not again within 1,000 year. For certainly our appetites here, be it of war or peace or hate or love, all is this ruled by the sight above. This mean I now by mighty Theseus, that for to hunt is so desirous, and namely at the great heart in May, that in his bed there dawneth him no day that he is not clad and ready for to ride, with hunt and horn and hounds him beside. For in his hunting hath he such delight, that it is all his joy and appetite, to be himself the great heart's bane. For after Mars he serveth now Diane. Clear was the day, as I have told ere this, and Theseus with all joy and bliss, with his Hippolyta the fair queen, and Emily, clothed all in green, on hunting be they ridden royally. And to the grove that stood full fast by, in which there was a hart, as men him told, Duke Theseus the straight way hath hold. And to the lawn he rideth him full right, for thither was the hart wont have his flight. And over a brook and so forth on his way, this duke will have a course at him or two, with hounds such as that him list command. And when this duke was come unto the lawn, under the sun he looketh, and anon, he was aware of Arcite and Palamon, that foughten fierce, as it were boars too. The bright swords went to and fro so hideously, that with the least stroke it seemed as it would fell an oak. But what they were nothing, he knew. This duke his courser with his spurs smote, and at a start he was betwixt them two, and pulled out a sword and cried, Ho! No more, upon pain of losing of your head. By mighty Mars he shall anon be dead. That smiteth any stroke that I may see. But telleth me what manner men ye be, that be so hardy for to fighten here, withouten judge or other officer, as it were in a lists royally. This Palamon answered hastily, and said, Sire, what needeth words mo? We have the death deserved both two. Two woeful wretches be we, two captives, that be encumbered of our own lives. And as thou art a rightful lord and judge, nor give us neither mercy nor refuge, but slay me first for Saint Charity. But slay my fellow eke as well as me, or slay him first, for though thou know it light, this is thy mortal foe, this is Arcite, that from thy land is banished on his head, for which he have deserved to be dead. For this is he that came unto thy gate, and said that he hight Philostrate. Thus hath he japed thee full many a year, and thou hast made him thy chief squire, and this is he that loveth Emily. For since the day is come that I shall die, I make plainly my confession, that I am thilke woeful Palamon, that hath thy prison broken wickedly. I am thy mortal foe, and it am I, that loveth so hot Emily the bright, that I will die present in her sight. Therefore I ask death and my judgment, but slay my fellow in the same intent, for both have we deserved to be slain. This worthy duke answered anon again, and said, This is a short conclusion. Your own mouth by your confession hath damned you, and I will it record. It needeth not to pain you with the cord. Ye shall be dead by mighty Mars the Red. The queen anon, for very womanhood, began for to weep, and so did Emily, and all the ladies in the company. Great pity was it, as it thought them all, that ever such a chance should fall. For gentlemen they were of great estate, and nothing but for love was this debate. And saw their bloody wounds wide and sore, and all cried both less and more, Have mercy, Lord, upon us women all. And on their bare knees down they fall, and would have kissed his feet there as he stood, till at the last assuaged was his mood. For pity runneth soon in gentle heart, and though at first for ire he shook and start, he have considered shortly in a clause the trespass of them both, and eke the cause. And though his ire their guilt at first accused, yet in his reason both of them excused. For thus he thought that every man will help himself in love, if that he can, and eke deliver himself out of prison. And eke his heart was moved to compassion, for women weepen ever thereupon. And in his gentle heart he thought anon, and softly to himself he said then, Fie, upon a lord who will no mercy try, but be a lion both in word and deed, to those who stand repentant and in dread, as well as to a proud, despiteous man, who will maintain the quarrel he began. That lord hath little of discretion, who in such case can make no division, but weigheth pride and humbleness as one. And shortly when his ire was thus gone, he gan to look with countenance full light, and spake these very words aloud forthright. The God of love, benedicite! How mighty and how great a Lord is he! Against his might there gaineth no obstacle. He may be called a god for his miracles, for he can make at his own guise of every heart as that him list devise. Lo here this Arcite and this Palamon, that quite were out of my prison, and might have lived in Thebes royally, and know I am their mortal enemy, and that their death lieth in my might also, and yet have love maugre their iron too. I brought them hither both for to die. Now looketh, is not that a high folly? Who may be a fool unless he love? Behold, for goddess' sake that sits above, see how they bleed, be they not well arrayed? Thus hath their lord, the god of love, I paid their wages and their fees for their service. And yet they ween for to be full wise, that serve and love, for aught that may befall. But this is yet the best game of all, that she for whom they have this jollity can them therefore as much thank as me. She woot no more of all this hot fare, by God, than woot a cuckoo or an hare. But all must be assayed hot and cold. A man must be a fool, or young or old, I wotted by myself full years ago. For in my time a servant was I one, and therefore, since I know of love's pain, and what how sore it can a man constrain, as he that have been caught oft in his lace, I you forgive all wholly this trespass, at request of the Queen that kneeleth here, and eke of Emily, my sister dear. And ye shall both anon unto me swear, that never more ye shall my country harm, nor make war upon me night nor day, but be my friends in all that ye may. I you forgive this trespass, every deal. And they him swore his asking fair and well, and him of lordship and of mercy prayed. And he them granteth grace, and thus he said, to speak of royal lineage and riches. Though that she were a queen or a princess, each of you both is worthy doubtless, to wed when time is. But nevertheless, I speak as for my sister Emily, for whom ye have this strife and jealousy. Ye wot yourself she may not wed two at once, though ye fighten evermore. That one of you, whether him be loath or lief, he must go piping in an ivy leaf. This is to say, she may not now have both, although ye be never so jealous nor so wroth. And therefore I you put in this degree, that each of you shall have his destiny, as him is shaped, and hearken in what wise. Lo here your end of that I shall devise. My will is this, for plain conclusion, withouten any replication. If that you liketh, take it for the best, that every one of you shall go where him lest, freely, withouten ransom or danger. And this day 50 weeks, neither far nor near, every one of you shall bring 100 knights, armed for lists, up at all rights, all ready to decide her by battle. And this behote I you withouten fail, upon my troth, and as I am a knight, that whether of you both that hath might, this is to say, that whether he or thou may with his 100, as I spake of now, slay his contrary, or out of lists drive, him shall I give Emily to wife, to whom that fortune giveth so fair a grace. The list shall I make in this place, and God so wisely on my soul rue, as I shall even judge be untrue. You shall none other end with me make, that one of you shall be dead or taken. And if you think this is well said, say your advice and hold yourselves paid. This is your end and your conclusion. Who looketh lightly now but Palamon? Who springeth up for joy but Arcite? Who could tell or who could endite the joy that is made in the place when Theseus hath done so fair a grace? But down on knees went every man a wight, and thanked him with all their heart and might, and namely the Thebans oft sith. And thus with good hope and with heart blithe they take their leave, and homeward gan they ride to Thebes with his old walls wide. Explicit secunda pars, sequitur pars tertia. I trow men would account it negligence if I forgot to tell of the expense of Theseus, who worketh busily, to build the lists in fashion royally, for such a noble theatre as it was, I dare well say in all this world there was. The circuit a mile was round about, walled all with stone and ditched all without. Round was its shape in manner of compass, full of degrees, the height of 60 pace, that when a man was seated in 1 degree, he hindered not his fellow there to see. Eastward there stood a gate of marble white, westward another opposite to it. And shortly to conclude, there was no place on earth so splendid in so little space. For in the land there was no craftsman who geometry or arithmetic can, nor painter, nor a carver of images, but Theseus gave him his meat and wages, the theatre to fashion and devise, and there to do his rites and sacrifice. Eastward above the gate he caused to make, in worship of fair Venus for her sake, an altar and a noble oratory. And westward in the mind and memory of Mars he likewise made another there, that cost a load of gold to make it fair. And northward in a turret on the wall, of alabaster white and red coral, an oratory splendid there to see. In worship of Diana's chastity hath Theseus caused nobly to devise. But yet had I forgotten to describe the noble carvings and the portraitures, the shapes, the countenances, and the figures that stood within these oratories 3. First in the temple of Venus mayst thou see, wrought on the wall full piteous to behold, the broken sleeps and the sighs cold, the sacred tears and the lamenting, the fiery strokes of the desiring, that love's servants in this life endure. The oaths that their covenants assure. Pleasance and hope desire foolhardiness, beauty and youth, bawdry, riches, charms and force, leasings, flattery, expense, busyness and jealousy, that wore of yellow gold a garland, and a cuckoo sitting on her hand. Feasts, instruments, carols, dances, lust and array, and all the circumstances of love, which that I reckon and reckon shall, by order were painted on the wall. And more than I can make of mention, for soothly all amount of Cytheron, where Venus hath her principal dwelling, was showed on the wall in portraying, with all the garden and the lustiness. Not was forgotten the porter idleness, nor Narcissus the fair of years ago, nor yet the folly of King Solomon, nor yet the great strength of Hercules, the enchantments of Medea and Circe, nor of Turnus with a hardy fierce courage, the rich Croesus captive in servage. Thus may ye see that wisdom nor riches, beauty nor sleight, strength nor hardiness, may with Venus hold no partnership. For as her list the world, then may she guide. Lo, all these folk so caught were in her lace, till they for woe full often said, Alas! Sufficeth here examples 1 or 2, and though I could reckon 1,000 mo. The statue of Venus, glorious for to see, was naked floating in the large sea, and from the navel down all covered was, with waves green and bright as any glass. A citole in her right hand had she, and on her head full seemly for to see, a rose garland fresh and well-smelling. Above her head her doves flickering, before her stood her son Cupido. Upon his shoulders wings had he too, and blind he was as it is often seen. A bow he bore, and arrows bright and keen. Why should I not as well eke tell you all the portraiture that was upon the wall within the temple of mighty Mars the Red? All painted was the wall in length and breadth, like to the inner rooms of the grisly place, that hight the great temple of Mars in Thrace, in that cold and frosty region where Mars hath his sovereign mansion. First on the wall was painted a forest, in which there dwelleth neither man nor beast, with knotty gnarled barren trees and old sharp stumps, and hideous there to behold, through which there ran a rumbling and a sough, as though a storm should burst through every bough. And downward from a hill beneath a bent, there stood the temple of Mars omnipotent, wrought all of burnished steel, of which the entry was long and narrow, ghastly there to see. And thence came such a raging and a blast that made the temple gates to shake full fast. The northern light in through the doorways shone, for window in the wall there was not one, through which a man might any light discern. The doors were all of adamant eternal, crosswise and lengthwise fastened, firm and strong, with iron tough, and every pillar long that did the mighty temple walls sustain, was barrel thick of iron bright and sheen. There saw I first the dark imagining of felony and all its compassing, the cruel ire as red as any gleed, the pick-purse and likewise the pallid dread, the smiler with a knife beneath his cloak, the burning barn that belched with blackest smoke, the treason of the murdering in the bed, the open war with wounds all bloody red, strife with bloody knife and sharp menace, all full of shrieking was that sorry place. The slayer of himself I saw there too, his heart's blood bathed his hair with crimson hue. The nail driven in the skull by night, the cold death with its mouth agape upright. Amid the temple sat mischance, with discomfort and sorry countenance. Yet saw I madness laughing in his rage, armed complaint outcries and fierce outrage, the carrion in the bush with throat kid carved. 1,000 slain, and not of sickness starved. The tyrant with the prey by force he reft. The town destroyed, there was nothing left. Yet saw I burned the ships that hopped and tossed. The hunter strangled with the wild bears. The sow had eaten the child right in the cradle. The cook he scalded for all his long ladle. Naught was forgotten by the fortune of Mars. The carter overridden with his cart, under the wheel full low he lay adown. There were also of Mars division, the barber and the butcher and the smith, that forgeth sharp swords on his stith. And all above, depicted in a tower, saw I Conquest sitting in great honour, with a sharp sword over his head, hanging by a subtle twine's thread. Depicted was the slaughter of Julius, of great Nero, and of Antonius. Although that in that time they were unborn, yet was their death depicted there before, by threatening of Mars right by figure. So was it showed in that portraiture, as is depicted in the stars above, who shall be slain, or else dead for love. Sufficeth one example in stories old. I may not reckon them all, though I would. The statue of Mars upon a cart stood, armed, and looked grim as he were mad, and over his head there shone 2 figures of stars that be called in scriptures. That one Puella, that other Rubeus. This god of armours was arrayed thus. A wolf there stood before him at his feet, with iron red, and of a man he ate. With subtle pencil was depicted this story, in reverence of Mars and of his glory. Now to the temple of Dian the chaste, as shortly as I can, I will me haste, to tell you all the description depicted be the walls up and down, of hunting and of modest chastity. There saw I how woeful Callisto, when that Dian aggrieved was with her, was turned from a woman to a bear, and after was she made the lodestar. Thus was it painted, I can say you no farther. Her son is eke a star, as men may see. There saw I Daphne, why turned to a tree. I mean not the goddess Dian, but Peneus' daughter, which that hight Daphne. There saw I Actaeon, a hart, why maked, for vengeance that he saw Dian all naked. I saw how that his hounds have him caught, and eaten him for that they knew him naught. Yet painted was a little furthermore how Atalanta hunted the wild boar, and Meleager and many another mo, for which Diane wrought him care and woe. There saw I many another wonder story, the which me list not drawn to memory. This goddess, on a hart full high, sat with small hounds all about her feet, and underneath her feet she had a moon, waxing it was, and should wane soon. In gaudy green her statue clothed was, with bow in hand and arrows in a case. Her iron cast she full lower down, where Pluto hath his dark region. A woman travailing was her before, but for her child so long was unborn, full piteously Lucina gan she call, and said, "Help, for thou mayst best of all." Well could he paint and lively that it wrought, with many a florin he the hues bought. Now being these lists made, and Theseus, that at his great cost arrayed thus, the temples and the theatre every deal, when it was done him liked wonder well. But stint I will of Theseus alight, and speak of Palamon and of Arcite. The day approacheth of their returning, that each should 100 knights bring the battle to decide, as are you told. And to Athens their covenant for to hold, hath each of them brought 100 knights, well armed for the war at all rights. And surely there trode many a man that never since that the world began, as for to speak of knighthood of their hand, as far as God hath maked sea or land, was of so few so noble a company. For every wight that loved chivalry, and would willingly have a passing name, have prayed that he might be of that game. And well was him that thereto chosen was. For if there fell tomorrow such a case, ye know well that every lusty knight that loveth paramours and hath his might, were it in England or elsewhere, they would willingly wish to be there, to fight for a lady benedicite. It were a lusty sight for to see, and right so fared they with Palamon. With him there went knights many one. Some would be armed in an habergeon, in a breastplate, and in a light gipoon, and some would have a pair of plates large, and some would have a Prussian shield or a targe. Some would be armed on their legs well, and have an axe, and some a mace of steel. There is no new fashion that was not old. Armed were they, as I've already told, each one according to his own opinion. There mayst thou see come riding with Palamon, Lycurgus himself, the mighty king of Thrace. Black was his beard, and manly was his face. The circles of his eyes within his head, they glowed in colour between yellow and red, and like a griffin fiercely looked about, with bushy hairs upon his brows. Full stout, his limbs were great, his muscles hard and strong. His shoulders broad, his arms were round and long, and as the custom was in his country, high on a golden chariot stood he, with 4 white bulls yoked in the traces. Instead of coat of arms above his harness, with claws as yellow and as bright as gold, he wore a coal-black bearskin, very old. His long hair combed behind him down his back, and like a raven's feather shone full black. A wreath of gold, arm thick and huge in weight, upon his head was set with jewels great, with finest rubies and with diamonds. Around his chariot went white hunting hounds, 20 and more, as large as any steer, to hunt the lion or to hunt the deer, and followed him with muzzles firmly bound. Gold collars and their rings, well filed and round, 100 lords he had within his rout, all fully armed with hearts both stern and stout. With Arcite, as in history's men find, there rode Emetrius, the king of Ind, upon a bay steed, armoured all in steel, and covered in gold cloth embroidered well. He came like Mars, the mighty god of arms. His coat of arms was made of cloth of tars, adorned with pearls, both white and round and great. His saddle was of newly beaten gold, a little mantle from his shoulders hanging, brimful of rubies, red as fire, sparkling. His curling hair like rings was closely run, and it was yellow glittering like the sun. His nose was high, his eyes bright citrine. His lips were round, his colouring sanguine. A few small freckles sprinkled on his face between the yellow and the black in shade, and like a lion he cast forth his gaze. I judged him 25 years of age. His beard had only just begun to spring. His voice was like a trumpet thundering. Upon his head he wore of laurel green a garland fresh and lovely to be seen. Upon his hand he bore for his delight a tame and noble eagle, lily white. 100 lords had he with him there, all armed save their heads in all their gear, full richly in all manner things. For trusteth well that dukes, earls, kings were gathered in this noble company, for love and for increase of chivalry. About this king there ran on every part full many a tame lion and leopard, and in this wise these lords all and some been on the Sunday to the city come, about prime and in the town alight. This Theseus, this duke, this worthy knight, when he had brought them into his city, and lodged them every one in his degree, he feasteth them, and doth so great labour to ease them and do them all honour, that yet men ween that no manner's wit of any estate could amend it. The minstrelsy, the service at the feast, the great gifts to the most and least, the rich array of Theseus' palace, nor who sat first nor last upon the dais, what ladies fairest be, or best dancing, or which of them can dance best and sing, nor who most feelingly speaketh of love, what hawks sitten on the perch above, what hounds liggen on the floor adown. Of all this make I now no mention, but all the effect that thinketh me the best. Now cometh the point, and hearken if you lest. The Sunday night, ere day began to spring, when Palamon the lark heard sing. Although it was not day by hours too, yet sang the lark and Palamon also, with holy heart and with a high courage. He rose to wend on his pilgrimage unto the blissful Cytherea benign, I mean Venus, honourable and digna. And in her hour he walketh forth apace unto the lists where her temple was, and down he kneeleth, and with humble cheer and heart sore he said as ye shall hear. Fairest of fair, O lady mine, Venus, daughter to Jove and spouse of Vulcanus, thou gladdener of the mount of Cithaeron, for that same love thou haddest to Adon, have pity of my bitter tears smart, and take mine humble prayer at thine heart. Alas, I have no language to tell the effects nor the torments of mine hell. Mine heart may my harms not betray. I am so confused that I can naught say. But mercy, lady bright, that knowest well my thought, and seest what harms that I feel. Consider all this and rue upon my sore, as surely as I shall for evermore, as far as my might, thy true servant be. And holden war always with chastity, that make I mine avow, so ye me help. I care not of arms for to yelp, nor I ask not tomorrow to have victory, nor renown in this case, nor vain glory, of praise of arms blown up and down. But I would have fully possession of Emily, and die in thy service. Find thou the manner how and in what wise. I reck not but it may better be to have victory of them or they of me, so that I have my lady in mine arms. For though so be that Mars is god of arms, your virtue is so great in heaven above, that if you list, I shall well have my love. Thy temple will I worship evermore, and on thine altar, where I ride or go, I will do sacrifice and fires beat. And if ye will not so, my lady sweet, then pray I thee tomorrow with a spear, that Arcite me through the heart bear. Then reck I not when I have lost my life, though that Arcite win her to his wife. This is the effect and end of my prayer. Give me my love, thou blissful lady dear. When the orison was done of Palamon, his sacrifice he did, and that anon, full piteously with all circumstances, though I tell not as now his observances. But at the last, the statue of Venus shook, and made a sign whereby that he took, that his prayer accepted was that day. For though the sign showed a delay, yet wist he well that granted was his boon, and with glad heart he went him home full soon. The third unequal hour that Palamon began, to Venus' temple for to go, up rose the sun, and up rose Emily, and to the temple of Diane gan he. Her maidens, that she thither with her led, full readily with them the fire they had, the incense, the clothes, and the remnant all, that to the sacrifice belongen shall. The horns full of mead, as was the guise, there lacked naught to do her sacrifice. Smoking the temple, full of clothes fair, this Emily with hard debonair, her body washed with water of a well. But how she did her rite I dare not tell, except it be anything in general. And yet it were a game to hear and all, to him that meaneth well it were no charge. But it is good a man be at his large. Her bright hair was combed untressed all, a crown of green oak ceremonial. Upon her head was set full fair and meet. 2 fires on the altar gan she beat, and did her things as men may behold. In Statius of Thebes and these books old, when kindled was the fire with piteous cheer, unto Diane she spake, as ye may hear. O chaste goddess of the woods green, to whom both heaven and earth and sea is seen, queen of the realm of Pluto dark and low, goddess of maidens that mine heart hast known. Full many a year, and wost what I desire, so keep me from thy vengeance and thine ire, that Actaeon abhorred so cruelly. Chaste goddess, well wast thou that I desire to be a maiden all my life, nor never will I be, no love nor wife. I am, thou wast yet of thy company, a maid and love, hunting and venery, and for to walken in the woods wild, and not to be a wife and be with child, naught will I know company of man. Now help me, lady, since ye may and can, for those 3 forms that thou hast in thee, and Palamon that hath such love to me, and eke Arcite that loveth me so sore. This grace I pray thee without more, send love and peace betwixt them 2, and from me turn away their hearts so, that all their hot love and their desire, and all their busy torment and their fire, be quenched or turned in another place. And if so be thou wilt not do me grace, or if my destiny be shaped so that I shall needs have one of them 2, then send me him that most desireth me. Behold, goddess of clean chastity, the bitter tears that on my cheeks fall. Since thou art maid and keeper of us all, my maidenhood thou keep and well conserve, and while I live a maid, I will thee serve. The fires burn upon the altar clear. While Emily was thus in her prayer, but suddenly she saw a sight strange. For right anon one of the fires quenched, and quickened again, and after that anon, that other fire was quenched and all gone. And as it quenched, it made a whistling, as do these wet brands in their burning. And at the brand's end out ran anon, as it were bloody drops many one. For which so sore aghast was Emily, that she was well nigh mad, and gan to cry, for she knew not what it signified. But only for the fear thus hath she cried and wept, that it was pity for to hear. And therewithal Diane gan appear, with bow in hand, right as an huntress, and said, Daughter, stint thine heaviness. Among the goddess high it is affirmed, and by eternal word writ and confirmed, Thou shalt be wedded unto one of those that have for thee so much care and woe. But unto which of them I may not tell. Farewell, for I may no longer dwell. The fires, which that on mine altar burn, shall thee declare, ere that thou go hence. Thine adventure of love, as in this case. And with that word, the arrows in the case of the goddess clattered fast and rang. And forth she went and made a vanishing, for which this Emily astonished was, and said, What amounteth this, alas? I put me in thy protection, Diane, and in thy disposition. And home she goeth anon the next way. This is the effect, there is no more to say. The next hour of Mars following this, Arcite unto the temple walked is, of fierce Mars to do his sacrifice, with all the rites of his pagan wise. With piteous heart and high devotion, right thus to Mars he said his orison. O strong God, that in the realms cold of Thrace honoured art and Lord I hold, and hast in every realm and every land of arms all the bridle in thine hand, and them fortunest as thee list devise, accept of me my piteous sacrifice, if so be that my youth may deserve, and that my might be worthy for to serve thy Godhead, that I may be one of thine. Then pray I thee to rue upon my pine. For that same pain and that same hot fire, in which thou whilom burned for desire, when that thou usedst the great beauty of fair young fresh Venus free, and haddest her in arms at thy will, although thee once upon a time misfell, when Vulcanus had caught thee in his lace, and found thee lying by his wife, alas. For that same sorrow that was in thine heart, have ruth as well upon my pains smart. I am young and unknowing as thou wast, and as I trow, with love offended most, that ever was any living creature. For she that doth me all this woe endure, recketh never whether I sink or fleet. And well I wot, ere she me mercy promise, I must with strength win her in the place. And well I wot, withouten help or grace, of thee my strength may not avail. Then help me, Lord, tomorrow in my battle, for that same fire that whilom burned thee, as well as that same fire now burneth me. And do that I tomorrow have victory, mine be the travail, and thine be the glory. Thy sovereign temple will I most honour, of any place, and always most labour in thy pleasance, and in thy crafts strong. And in thy temple I will my banner hang, and all the arms of my company. And evermore unto that day I die, eternal fire I will before thee find, and eke to this avow I will me bind. My beard, mine hair that hangeth long adown, that never yet felt offence of razor nor of shear, I will thee give, and be thy true servant while I live. Now, Lord, have ruth upon my sorrows sore. Give me victory. I ask thee no more. The prayer stinted of Arcite the strong, the rings on the temple door that hung, and eke the doors clattered full fast, of which Arcite somewhat was aghast. The fires burned upon the altar bright, that it gan all the temple for to light, and sweet smell the ground anon upgave. And Arcite anon his hand upheaved, and more incense into the fire he cast. With other rites more, and at the last, the statue of Mars began his hauberk ring, and with that sound he heard a murmuring, full low and dim, that said thus, Victory. For which he gave to Mars honour and glory, and thus with joy and hope well to fare, Arcite anon unto his inn is gone, as fain as fowl is of the bright sun. And right anon such strife there is begun, for that same granting in the heaven above, betwixt Venus, the goddess of love, and Mars, the stern god omnipotent. That Jupiter was busy it to stint, till that the pale Saturnus, the cold, that knew so many adventures old, found in his old experience and art, that he full soon have pleased every part. As sooth is said, eld hath great advantage, in eld is both wisdom and usage. Men may the old outrun, and not outread. Saturn anon, to stint the strife and dread, although it be against his kind, of all this strife he gan remedy find. My dear daughter Venus, quod Saturn, my course that hath so wide for to turn, hath more power than what any man. Mine is the drowning in the sea so wan, mine is the prison in the dark coat, mine is the strangling and hanging by the throat, the murmur and the churls rebelling, the groaning and the privy poisoning. I do vengeance and plain correction, while I dwell in the sign of the lion. Mine is the ruin of the high halls, the falling of the towers and of the walls, upon the miner or the carpenter. I slew Samson in shaking the pillar, and mine be the maladies cold, the dark treasons and the casts old. My looking is the father of pestilence. Now weep no more. I shall do diligence, that Palamon, that is thine own knight, shall have his lady as thou hast him hight. Though Mars shall help his knight, yet nevertheless, betwixt you there must be sometime peace. Although ye be not of one complexion, that causeth all day such division. I am thine ale, ready at thy will. Weep thou no more, I will thy desire fulfill. Now will I stint of the gods above, of Mars and of Venus, goddess of love, and tell you as plainly as I can the great effect for which that I began. Explicit tertia pars, sequitur pars quata. Great was the feast in Athens that day, and eke the lusty season of that May made every wight to be in such pleasance that all that Monday jousted they and danced, and spent it in Venus' high service. But by the cause that they should rise early for to see the great fight, unto their rest went they at night. And on the morrow, when that day gan spring, of horse and harness, noise and clattering, there was in hostelries all about. And to the palace rode there many a rout, of lords upon steeds and palfreys. There mayst thou see devising of harness, so uncouth and so rich and wrought so well, of goldsmithery, of broidering, and of steel. The shields, bright testers and trappings, gold-hewn helms, hauberks, coat-armours, lords' investments on their coursers, knights of retinue and eke squires nailing the spears and helms buckling, fitting of shields with lanyards lacing. There as need is, they were nothing idle. The foamy steeds on the golden bridle, gnawing and fast the armourers also, with file and hammer pricking to and fro. Yeomen on foot and commons many one, with short staves thick as they may go, pipes, trumpets, nakers, clarions, that in the battle blowen bloody sounds. The palace full of peoples up and down, here 3, there 10, holding their question, divining of these Theban knights too. Some said thus, some said it shall be so. Some held with him with the black beard, some with the bald, some with the thick-haired. Some said he looked grim, and he would fight. He hath a battle-axe of 20 pound of weight. Thus was the hall full of divining. Long after that the sun began to spring, the great Theseus, that of his sleep awaked, with minstrelsy and noise that was maked, held yet the chamber of his palace rich, till that the Theban knights both alike honoured were into the palace fetched. Duke Theseus was at a window set, arrayed right as he were a god in throne. The people presseth thitherward full soon, him for to see and do high reverence, and eke to hearken his hest and his sentence. A herald on a scaffold made a hoe, till all the noise of the people was yewed. And when he saw the people of noise all still, then showed he the mighty Duke's will. The Lord hath of his high discretion considered that it were destruction to gentle blood to fighten in the guise of mortal battle now in this emprise. Wherefore to shape that they shall not die, he will his first purpose modify. No man therefore, upon pain of loss of life, no man a shot, nor poleaxe, nor short knife, into the lists send or thither bring, nor short sword for to stoke with point biting. No man shall draw, nor bear it by his side, nor no man shall unto his fellow ride. But one course with a sharp, vie-ground spear thrust if him list on foot himself to were. And he that is at mischief shall be take, and not slain, but be brought unto the stake. That shall be ordained on either side. But thither he shall by force, and there abide. And if so fall the chieftain be taken, on either side, or else slay his match, no longer shall the tourneying last. God speed you go forth and lay on fast. With long sword and with maces fight your fill. Go now your way, this is the Lord's will. The voice of people touched the heaven, so loud cried they with merry Stephen. God save such a Lord that is so good, he willeth no destruction of blood. Up go the trumpets and the melody, and to the lists rideth the company. By ordinance throughout the city, large, hanged with cloth of gold and not with serge, Full like a lord this noble duke gan ride. These two Thebans upon either side, and after rode the Queen and Emily, and after that another company, of one another after their degree. And thus they parson throughout the city, and to the lists come they by time. It was not of the day yet fully prime, when set was Theseus full rich and high. Hippolyta the Queen and Emily, and other ladies in degrees about, unto the seats presseth all the rout. And westward through the gates under mart, Arcite and eke the 100 of his part, with banner red is entered right anon. And in that same moment Palamon is under Venus eastward in the place, with banner white and hardy cheer and face. In all the world to seek and up and down, so even withouten variation, there were no such companies too. For there was none so wise that could say that any had of other advantage, of worthiness, nor of estate, nor age. So even were they chosen for to guess, and in 2 ranges fair they them dress. When that their names read were every one, that in their number guile there were none. Then were the gates shut, and cried was loud, Do now your devoir, young knights proud. The heralds left their pricking up and down. Now ring trumpets loud and clarion. There is no more to say but west and east. In go the spears, full sadly in arrest. In goeth the sharp spur into the side. There see men who can joust and who can ride. There shiver shafts upon shields thick. He feeleth through the breastbone the prick. Up spring the spears 20 foot on height. Out go the swords as the silver bright. The helms they hew and shred. Out burst the blood with stern streams red. With mighty maces the bones they burst. He through the thickest of the throng gan thrust. There stumble steeds strong, and down goeth all. He rolleth under foot as doth a ball. He thrusteth on his feet with his truncheon, and he him hurtleth with his horse adown. He through the body is hurt, and sitheny taken, maugre his head, and brought unto the stake. As forward was right, there he must abide. Another lead is on that other side, and sometime doth them Theseus to rest, them to refresh and drink if them list. Full oft a day have these Thebans two together met and wrought his fellow woe. Unhorsed hath each other of them too. There was no tiger in the vale of Galgaphi, when that her whelp is stolen when it is light, so cruel on the hunt as is Arcite, for jealous heart upon this Palamon. Nor in Belle Marie there is so fell lion, that hunted is or for his hunger mad, nor of his prey desireth so the blood, as Palamon to slay his foe. Arcite, the jealous strokes on their helms bite, outrunneth blood on both their sides red. Sometime an end there is of every deed, for ere the sun unto the rest went, the strong king Emetrius gan hent. This Palamon, as he fought with Arcite, and made his sword deep in his flesh to bite, and by the force of 20 is he take, unyielded, and he drawn unto the stake. And in the rescue of this Palamon, the strong king Ligurga is borne adown, and King Emetrius, for all his strength, is borne out of his saddle a sworder's length. So hit him Palamon ere he were take, but all for naught he was brought to the stake. His hardy heart might him help naught, he must abide when that he was caught, by force and eke by composition. Who sorroweth now but woeful Palamon, that must no more go again to fight? And when that Theseus had seen this sight, unto the folk that foughten thus each one, he cried, Ho, no more, for it is done. I will be true judge and no party. Our city of Thebes shall have Emily, that by his fortune have her fairly won. Anon there is a noise of people begun, for joy of this, so loud and high withal. It seemed that the list should fall. What can now fair Venus do above? What saith she now? What doth this queen of love? But weepeth so for wanting of her will, till that her tears in the lists fill. She said, I am ashamed, doubtless. Saturnus said, Daughter, hold thy peace. Mars hath his will, his knight hath all his boon. and by mine head thou shalt be eased soon. The trumpets with the loud minstrelsy, the heralds that full loud yell and cry, been in their wheel for joy of dawn Arcite. But hearken me, and stinteth now a light, which a miracle there befell anon. This fierce Arcite hath off his helm he done, and on a courser, for to show his face, he pricketh end along the large place, looking upward upon this Emily. And she again him cast a friendly eye, for women, as to speak in common, they follow all the favour of fortune. And she was all his cheer, as in his heart, out of the ground a fury infernal start, from Pluto sent at request of Saturn, for which his horse, for fear, gan to turn, and leapt aside and foundered as he leapt. And ere that Arcite may take and keep, he pitched him on the pommel of his head, that in the place he lay as he were dead, his breast to bursten with his saddle-bow. As black he lay as any coal or crow, so was the blood y-runnin' in his face. Anon he was borne out of the place, with heart sore to Theseus' palace. Then was he carved out of his harness, and in a bed he brought, full fair and blithe. For he was yet in memory and alive, and all was crying after Emily. Duke Theseus with all his company is comen home to Athens his city, with all bliss and great solemnity. Although that this adventure was fallen, he would not discomfort them all. Men said eke that Arcite shall not die, he shall be healed of his malady. And of another thing they were as fain, that of them all was there none y slain, although they were sorely hurt, and namely one, that with a spear was pierced his breastbone. To other wounds and to broken arms, some hadden salves and some hadden charms. Pharmacies of herbs and eke salve they drunken, for they would their limbs have. For which this noble duke, as he well can, comforteth and honoureth every man, and made revel all the long night unto the strange lords as was right. Nor there was holden no discomforting, but as a joust or a tourneying, for soothly there was no discomfiture. For falling is not but an adventure, nor to be led with force unto the stake. Unyielded, and with 20 knights take, one person alone withouten moe, and harried forth by arm, foot, and toe, and eke his steed driven forth with staves. With footmen both yeomen and eke knaves, it was not accounted him no villainy. There may no man call it cowardice, for which anon Duke Theseus let cry, to stint all rancour and envy, the prize as well of one side as of other, and either side alike as other's brother. And gave them gifts after their degree, and fully held a feast days 3, and conveyed the kings worthily out of his town a journey largely, and home went every man the right way. There was no more but farewell, have good day. Of this battle I will no more endite, but speak of Palamon and of Arcite. Swelleth the breast of Arcite and the sore, increaseth at his heart more and more the clotted blood, for any leechcraft corrupteth, and is in his body left, that neither bloodletting nor cupping nor drink of herbs may be his helping. The virtue expulsive or animal, from that same virtue called natural, may not the venom void nor expel. The pipes of his lungs began to swell, and every muscle in his breast adown is ruined with venom and corruption. Him gaineth neither for to get his life, vomit upward nor downward laxative, all is to broken that same region. Nature hath now no domination, and certainly where nature will not work, farewell physic go, bear the man to church. This all and some, that Arcite must die, for which he sendeth after Emily, and Palamon, that was his cousin dear. Then said he thus, as ye shall after hear. Naught may the woeful spirit in mine heart declare one point of all my sorrow smart, to you, my lady that I love most. But I bequeath the service of my ghost to you above every creature, since that my life may no longer dure. Alas the woe, alas the pain strong, that I for you have suffered and so long. Alas the death, alas mine Emily. Alas departing of our company. Alas mine heart's queen, alas my wife. Mine heart's lady, ender of my life. What is this world? What asketh men to have, now with his love, now in his cold grave, alone withouten any company? Farewell, my sweet foe, mine Emily, and softly take me in your arms too. For love of God, and hearken what I say. I have here with my cousin Palamon had strife and rancour many a day gone, for love of you and for my jealousy. And Jupiter so wisely my sole guide, to speaken of a servant properly, with all circumstances truly, that is to say, truth, honour, and knighthood, wisdom, humbleness estate, and high kinhood, freedom, and all that longeth to that art. So Jupiter have of my soul part, as in this world right now know I none, so worthy to be loved as Palamon, that serveth you, and will do all his life. And if that ever ye shall be a wife, forget not Palamon the gentleman. And with that word his speech fail began, for from his feet up to his breast was come the cold of death that had him overcome. And yet moreover, in his arms too, the vital strength is lost and all ago. Only the intellect withouten more, that dwelled in his heart sick and sore. 'Gan fail when the heart felt death, dusken his iron too, and failed breath. But on his lady yet cast he his eye. His last word was, "Mercy, Emily." His spirit changed house and went there. As I came, never I cannot tell where. Therefore I stint. I am no diviner. Of souls find I not in this register. Nor me list those opinions to tell of them, though they write where they dwell. Our sight is cold there, Mars his sole guide. Now will I speaken forth of Emily. Shrieked Emily, and howleth Palamon, and Theseus his sister took anon, swooning, and bare her from the corpse away. What helpeth it to tarry forth the day, to tellen how she wept both eve and morrow? For in such case women have such sorrow when that their husbands be from them ago, that for the more part they sorrow so, or else fallen in such malady, that at the last certainly they die. Infinite be the sorrows and the tears of old folk and folk of tender years in all the town for death of this Theban. For him there weepeth both child and man, so great a weeping was there none certain when Hector was brought all freshly slain to Troy. Alas, the pity that was there! Scratching of cheeks and rending eke of hair. Why wouldest thou be dead, these women cry, and haddest gold enough, and Emily? No man might gladden Theseus, saving his old father Aegeus, that knew this world's transmutation as he had seen it changen up and down, joy after woe, and woe after gladness, and showed them examples and likeness. Right as there died never man, quod he, that he ne lived in earth in some degree. Right so there lived never man, he said, in all this world that sometime he ne died. This world is but a thoroughfare full of woe, and we be pilgrims passing to and fro. Death is an end of every worldly sore, and over all this, yet said he, much more to this effect full wisely to exhort, the people that they should them reconfert. Duke Theseus, with all his busy cure, cast now where that the sepulture of good Arcity may best he maked be, and eke most honourable in his degree. And at the last he took conclusion, that there as first Arcity and Palamon had for love the battle them between, that in that same grove, sweet and green, there as he had his amorous desires, his complaint, and for love his hot fires, he would make a fire in which the office funeral he might all accomplish. and let command anon to hack and hew the oaks old, and lay them on a row, in pieces well arrayed for to burn. His officers with swift feet they run, and ride anon at his commandment. And after this, Theseus hath he sent, after a bier, and it all overspread with cloth of gold, the richest that he had. And of the same suit he clad Arcite. Upon his hands had he gloves white, eke on his head a crown of laurel green, and in his hand a sword full bright and keen. He laid him bare the visage on the bier, therewith he wept that pity was to hear. And for the people should see him all, when it was day he brought him to the hall that roared of the crying and the sound. Then came this woeful Theban Palamon, with fluttering beard and rugged ashy hairs, in clothes black he dropped all with tears, and passing others of weeping, Emily, the ruefulest of all the company. Inasmuch as the service should be the more noble and rich in his degree, Duke Theseus let forth 3 steeds bring, that trapped were in steel, all glittering, and covered with the arms of dawn Arcite. Upon these steeds, that were great and white, there sitten folk, of which one bore his shield, another his spear up in his hands held. The third bore with him his Turkish bow, of burned gold was the case, and eke the harness, and ridden forth apace with sorrowful cheer toward the grove, as ye shall after hear, the noblest of the Greeks that there were. Upon their shoulders carried the bier, with slack pace and iron red and wet, throughout the city by the master street, that spread was all with black and wonder high. Right of the same is all the street he covered. Upon the right hand went old Aegeus, and on that other side Duke Theseus, with vessels in their hands of gold full fine, all full of honey milk and blood and wine. Eke Palamon with full great company, and after that came woeful Emily, with fire in hand, as was that time the guise, to do the office of funeral service. High labour and full great appareling was at the service and the fire-making, that with his green top the heaven reached, and 20 fathom of breadth the arms stretched. This is to say, the boughs were so broad of straw, first there was laid full many a load, but how the fire was maked up on height, and eke the names, how the trees height, as oak, fir, birch, asp, alder, holm, poplar, willow elm, plain ash, box chestnut, linden, laurel, maple thorn, beech, hazel, yew, whipple tree. How they were felled shall not be told by me, nor how the gods rinnen up and down, disherited of their habitation in which they dwelled in rest and peace. Nymphs, fauns, and hamadryads, nor how the beasts and the birds all fledden for fear when the wood was fall, nor how the ground aghast was of the light, that was not wont to see the sun bright, nor how the fire was couched first with straw, and then with dry sticks cloven a3, and then with greenwood and spicery, and then with cloth of gold, and with jewellery, and garlands hanging with full many a flower. The myrrh, the incense, with also great odour. Nor how Arcite lay among all this, nor what richesse about his body is, nor how that Emily, as was the guise, put in the fire of funeral service, nor how she swooned when men made the fire, nor what she spake, nor what was her desire, nor what jewels men in the fire then cast, when that the fire was great and burned fast, nor how some cast their shield and some their spear, and of their vestments which that they were, and cups full of wine and milk and blood into the fire that burned as it were mad. Nor how the Greeks with a huge rout thrice ridden all the fire about, upon the left hand with a loud shouting, and thrice with their spears clattering, and thrice how the ladies gan to cry. Nor how that led was homeward Emily, nor how Arcite is burned to ashes cold, nor how that lich wake was he hold, all that same night, nor how the Greeks play. The wake plays, I care not to say, who wrestleth best naked with oil anoint, nor who that bore him best in any disjoint. I will not tell you how they journeyed on homeward to Athens when the play was done, but shortly to the point I now will wend, and bring my lengthy story to an end. By process and the length of certain years, all ended with the mourning and the tears of Greeks by one accord and common assent. Then it appeared there was a parliament at Athens upon certain points and cases. Among the matters spoken of in those places was making an alliance with certain lands and taking full obedience from Theban hands, for which this noble Theseus anon sent out to summon gentle Palamon. Unknown to him the reason or the why, but in his mourning clothes full sorrowfully, he came at his commandment hastily. Then Theseus sent also for Emily. When they were seated and all hushed the place, and Theseus had waited for a space before a word came from his prudent breast, he set his eyes wherever pleased him best, and with a solemn visage sighed still, and afterward thus spoke to them his will. The primal mover of the cause above, when first he made the lovely chain of love, great was the work and lofty his intent. He knew full well what was thereby meant. For with that lovely chain of love he bound the fire, the air, the water, and the ground, within such bounds that they may never flee. That same great prince and mover, then, quod he, hath established in this wretched world below certain days and terms for all that grow. For everything engendered in this place, beyond which final day they may not pass, although those days may well be shortened yet, no learned authority need here be set, for this is proven by experience. But now I shall declare my full sentence. Then may men by this order well discern that that same mover stable is and eternal. Well may men know, unless he be a fool, that every part deriveth from his whole. For nature hath not taken his beginning of no party nor fragment of a thing, but of a thing that perfect is and stable, descending so till it be corruptible. And therefore of his wise purveyance he hath so well beset his ordinance, that species of things and progressions shall endure by successions, and not eternal be without a lie. This mayst thou understand and see at eye. Lo, the oak that hath so long a nourishing, from time that it first beginneth springing, and hath so long a life as we may see, yet at the last wasted is the tree. Consider eke how that the hard stone under our feet on which we tread and go, yet wasteth it as it lieth by the way. The broad river sometime waxeth dry, the great towns see we wane and wend. Then may ye see that all this thing hath end. Of man and woman see we well also, that needs in one of these terms two. This is to say, in youth, or else age, he must be dead, the king, as shall a page. Some in his bed, some in the deep sea, some in the large field, as men may see. There helpeth naught, all goeth that same way. Then may I say that all this thing must die. What maketh this but Jupiter the king, the which is prince and cause of everything, converting all unto his proper well, from which it is derived, sooth to tell. And here against no creature alive, of no degree, availeth for to strive. Then is it wisdom, as it thinketh me, to maken virtue of necessity, and take it well that we may not eschew, and namely that to us all is due, and whoso grudgeth aught, he doth folly, and rebel is to him, that all may guide. And certainly a man hath most honour to die in his excellence and flower, when he is sure of his good name. Then hath he done his friend, nor him no shame, and gladder ought his friend be of his death, when with honour yielded is his breath, than when his name faded is for age. For all forgotten is his vassalage. Then is it best, as for a worthy fame, to die when that he is best of name. The contrary of all this is wilfulness. Why grudge we, why have we heaviness, that good Arcite of chivalry flower departed is with duty and honour out of this foul prison of this life? Why grudge here his cousin and his wife, of his welfare that love them so well? Can he them thank? Nay, God wot never a deal, that both his soul and eke themselves offend. and yet they may their desires not amend. What may I conclude of this long series, but after woe I read us to be merry, and thanken Jupiter of all his grace. And ere that we departen from this place, I read that we make of sorrows two, one perfect joy lasting evermo. And looketh now where most sorrow is herein, there will we first amend and begin. Sister, quod he, this is my full assent, with all the advice here of my parliament. That gentle Palamon, your own knight, that serveth you with will, heart, and might, and ever hath done since that ye first him knew, that ye shall of your grace upon him rue, and take him for husband and for lord. Lend me your hand, for this is our accord. Let's see now of your womanly pity. He is a kinger's brother's son, pardie, and though he were a poor bachelor, since he hath served you so many a year, and had for you so great adversity, it must be considered, believe me, for gentle mercy ought to pass right. Then said he thus to Palamon, full right, I trow there needeth little sermoning to make you assent to this thing. Come near and take your lady by the hand, betwixt them was made anon the bond, that hight matrimony or marriage, by all the council and the baronage. And thus, with all bliss and melody, hath Palamon I wedded Emily. And God that all this wide world hath wrought, send him his love that hath it dear abought. For now is Palamon in all weal, living in bliss, in riches, and in health. And Emily him loveth so tenderly, and he her serveth also gently, that never was there no word them between of jealousy or any other teen. Thus endeth Palamon and Emily, and God save all this fair company. Amen. Here is ended the knight's tale.